What's going on, y'all? Name's Anand. I'm a data integration architect. I'm also someone with just way too many hobbies. You can probably look around the room and see some of them. But um, I wanted to restart making videos. It's been about 10 years. I used to create videos on Linux and open source and stuff like that. But the reason I'm restarting is there's been obviously developments in the generative AI space. And also, I've been just really blown away with some of the capabilities of Palantir. Um, Not so much the capabilities on paper, but just kind of the entire ecosystem, if you will. And it takes some digging into to really understand the value and how I think it will change enterprise computing in the next couple of years. But that's a rant for another day. Today, we're going to focus on compute modules. So compute modules, at the end of the day, it lets you run any programming language as long as you can Dockerize it. It lets you run that and integrate it with the rest of the Foundry ecosystem, which means that either as a pipeline or like you can call it a streaming mode or similar, or as a real-time function from like a UI or full stack app, you can interact with your code, your legacy code, code that you just could not write in one of the supported Foundry languages, whatever the case may be. And something that we're going to do a little bit differently here is I told you I'm a data integration architect. On the side, I have what I'll call these like just for fun companies. So I started these just because my hobbies tend to get out of control. And in this case, I started selling tools. So, like I was saying, one of the cool things here is we're going to use some real examples. And in this case, these are real examples running in production. I'm going to kind of walk you through the entire process of getting there. I'm going to try to frame it from the perspective of someone who has experience with other cloud platforms, AWS, Azure, GCP, or even just the big platforms like Databricks, or even some of your integration platforms like Lambdas with AWS, MuleSoft, whatever the technology might be. I'm going to kind of frame it from that lens to create like a understandable pathway by which you can understand Palantir if you're new to it. So with that out of the way, one of the things I like to do is take apart tools, understand how they work. Even selling them is kind of fun for me. What's not fun for me is creating the listings for them, right? It's pretty tedious, takes some time, especially if you want to make like a very professional looking listing. You want to get all the key information about it, right? Description, specifications, features, etc. And you can really tell like what a quality listing looks like versus a lower quality one. And I don't know about you, but at least for me, if I'm looking to buy tools from a company that I haven't purchased from before, one of the first things I look at is how well have they made their listing? Because if they can't take the time to create a good listing, I probably don't trust the time that they're going to put into making sure that the tool is genuine, has a valid warranty, that it's correctly packaged and shipped and all of that, right? So it goes a long way is what I'm trying to get to. And so I wanted to make sure that all of my listings had good descriptions and all that. But getting all this information manually takes some time. So what I ended up doing was creating a TypeScript web scraper that would go out, navigate to whatever the tool company's website, and pull out the key information that I mentioned. So I can quickly kind of show you what that will look like. So I created an interface here. Not all of them will have a UPC, at least on their public website from what I've seen, but item number, title, description, specs, features, what items are included in what you're buying, whether that's a kit or even just like the item itself, right? And that information will then get put onto the website. I wanted to make that as quick as possible. So let me kind of just show you what this looks like. These are just functions that expose it, and in this case, it was a very basic script. I just commented or uncommented what I actually wanted to work with at the time. So let's run this example. 2888-20 I know from memory is a 4.5-inch Milwaukee fuel grinder with variable speed. It's good for like aluminum and some things where you need to dial the speed down to prevent it from burning. Anyways, let's build this. So npm run build, and then let's actually run this. Actually, I'll load this while it's pulling information, right? So you can see variable speed grinder. And there we go, we're done, right? And in this case, I might not actually even have this listed, so I can actually show you a quick example. So I'll just quickly go into here and paste this. I very intentionally created the title like this, so I can quickly copy and paste it. I like to also put the model number directly in the title, as well as the brand. If someone doesn't happen to know M18 means Milwaukee. Let's scroll down. I'll ultimately put a price and other things like that. But in this case, I'm just going to set it as a draft and work on it later. But you get the picture, right? That was a whole lot faster than going to the website and getting it manually. And you can see it's a very well formatted and structured post. Okay. Now, what our goal here is to take this, which is currently running locally, and have it running from Palantir and actually running from a visual web form or equivalent. So I'm not just running this from a terminal. All right. Let's go. All right. So we're in Palantir. This is just a personal developer instance, but what I'm going to go ahead and do is create a new compute module. And I'm very intentionally going to try to hit some errors as we're going, just because I want to help you solve those same errors if and when you hit them. All right, so what we're first going to do is start with just the most basic example. And so that's actually just in JavaScript, not TypeScript. So we'll create that. There's two options here, functions and pipeline. If you're looking to run in pipeline mode, which is really for streaming, I would say definitely just watch this video from Chris. He's actually the one who created or developed the majority of this library, which is one of the dependencies that you'll ultimately use. And I think he is probably the de facto expert on TypeScript compute modules. And then if you're looking to do it from Python, Dorian's video is Codestrap on YouTube. He has a really, really in-depth and awesome tutorial for Python. It actually probably goes into more depth than you actually need. But point being is if you're looking for one of those languages, look at those resources. Now, if you're trying to run it in function mode, like I am, stay tuned. All right, so we're going to quickly click on the Get Started guide. I already talked through what these are, and if you're looking at the advanced mode, that is really for running any other language. If you're new to this, definitely start with one of the documented languages. If you're trying to run in Python, you have good support for both local and code repositories. If you're trying to run in JS, code repositories is not supported. You have to do this on your local machine, but I'll try to push a repo for you all. Let me just make sure I have an example here. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so I'll try to make this available after this, but back to Foundry. So if you just look through this example really quickly, there's some pretty obvious pieces here. So you just initialize the repository. Obviously, you need to make sure you have Docker and Node installed. If you don't know how, Google it. Install the dependency here. They give you a sample piece of code. We'll probably actually just use that as is, as well as an example Docker file. So this should And I say should with a smile because I know it's not going to run perfectly because this is a new computer that I'm actually configured all my environment variables on. Should run smoothly. So let's just run it. So here's the repo. So I'm going to run npm init-y. That creates your package.json. I'll install this. Okay, so now if you click into it, you can see that the dependency is here. I'll create the index, and I'll create the Docker file while I'm at it. Okay. So we'll just copy this and try to run it exactly as is. Oh, that's the wrong one. All right, Docker file. One tip, don't mess with this. I know if you're on a Mac like I am, your temptation will be to mess with that because it's not an AMD system. But don't touch that. But point being is, if you just quickly look through this, is kind of doing what you would expect. It's copying some of the files, and then it's just running node.index.js. Okay, and we can even do that right now. That will hopefully give us our first error. So it's looking for some file that doesn't exist. Okay, now you can go hunt through this actual code and kind of show you what you need to do. I've done this for you to some extent, so I largely know these from memory. But if you can look at it right now, it's expecting certain environment variables that are not there. Okay. Well, maybe you're one step ahead and actually started reading the documentation. I didn't. And you can see kind of some of what these should be. I can tell you right now that one of them is actually missing. What I want to actually do is give you a way that you can run a sample app within the Docker environment within Foundry and actually get the info back that you need. And the kind of trick that we're going to rely on is on Unix-based system. There's an option to just do print-env and see your different environment variables. All right. So let's continue. Let me close this and we'll continue with the rest of the example. So let's pretend that we're just stepping through this. We never try to run it locally. We're going to create a new backing repository. All right, that's fine. Okay. We'll generate a token and sure, hello world is fine. We'll copy this and let's run it. What does this say? The legacy builder is deprecated. Oh, wonderful. Okay. Okay. Let's give it another try. Wonderful. It has made progress. It's finished, actually. So apparently the solution was just updating. Great. Let's ignore what the AI told us for now. Okay, so we've built this, and let's just follow along with the instructions. I'll show you how to quickly install it, and then we can go through how to actually run it. So we've run this command. That was successful now. Now we can run this one. All right. So that means that if we scroll down here, theoretically, this should be available. So we'll just call this container. Great, right? So it's automatically refreshed. We've only deployed this once, so 0.0.1 is the only available option. Click Update Configuration. And I think that's it. Should just be able to start it up. And again, we're just copying the existing example, so this is okay for getting it running, but isn't really going to teach you a whole lot. And if you actually want to work with it, you can either self-define a function, or if you specify it correctly, it will do like a self-discovery. And I think, or at least to me, that's a pretty valuable feature. So we'll try to stick to that. Let's make sure that this is actually coming online. Boom, it is now connected. That is now showing it's responsive. And we really should get two functions. One of them is just summing two values. The other one is just going to print out hello. Okay, so connected JSON. All right, so I guess I didn't configure this in the self-discovery mode. Actually, we're going to need a Sinclair dependency for that, so that makes sense. So I'll just call this sum, and our inputs are going to be, actually, let's just do the easy mode, the hello, because it's one variable. And name is the only input. That's going to be a string. That is fine. Okay, so now if we go here, click on test, we can say code is working. All right. So that was step one, which is just running the default. Okay. All right, we're back. Switch the hat, started a print job. Let's get into it. So like I said, we want to make sure that we can actually run this locally. If we run node index.js, boom, we're getting some failure. And if we try to do the Docker version, Docker images, let me make this full screen. I don't, that's interesting. All right, it has the same ID. So this means that there should be a local image for it. So let's try to run this. I don't remember Docker, it should just be run. Hello-world. Okay, yep. You can see that we're getting the exact same error, okay? So it's saying that there is a missing file. Again, we know this from going into it before, that within the node modules in this compute.js, and again, if we actually want to go into it, Palantir, dist compute module.js, we know for a fact that we're going to need this, this, and this. So what is the actual value for this? It's a good question. I have cheated a little bit for you all and gone ahead and found all right, so I'm going to replace well, actually, let me just add a new function here. So we're going to register a new function, and that new function is really just going to print out the environment variables. Now, I can tell you right now that there's a lot of system information So it's going to get a little bit messy. Actually, let's just use cursor and see if it can help us out. So generate a, we'll just say register a function that is named get env that will turn on the key variables. We'll just see what it can do. Yep, seems about right. Let's apply it. And again, we can't currently run this locally, so we're just going to have to hope and pray. Close out of that. And if you go to your, where is this? Documentation. You're just going to have to scroll through a little bit. You're going to see that it's going to pre-tag it as 0.02. So we'll regenerate a token, just copy this, rebuild it, and push it back up. That was quick. And we should be able to refresh, and there you go. We can update to 0.02. And we're going to have to go back and register the new function. So this is just going to be called get env. It has no inputs. So we can save it. And let's actually make sure that this is running first before we tried that. Yep. Okay. So we can run it in either place, right? There's a couple ways that you can do that. So there's no required input from this. The first time you run it always takes a little bit. If you want to avoid that, you can always change one of the configurations here to make sure that it always has a replica that's live. Right now it's having to restart up one, which is why it's taking so long. And because it's upgrading. Good, running. Why is it not happy? Alright, so I think that needs to be returned as a string. Oh, okay. There you go. That was the solution. So the simple option here is we can just copy everything that's in here, move it over to a new file and process it that way. I'm going to completely overcomplicate it and copy in another example. What this is doing is it's the exact same code, this process.env. All that it's doing is I looked at that example from before and saw all of these environment variables that I could tell were just so Palantir under the hood runs its own version of what I'll call like Kubernetes. I'm blanking on what they call it actually, but point being is they have a lot of environment variables that are required to run that, and that's what you're seeing here. That causes a bunch of noise. So I can look into this, and I pre-processed some of that and figured out this is what it's going to look like. To get that up and running again, we're going to have to rebuild this. So regenerate a token, copy this, and push it back up. All right, so while that's working, we can start to get working on the script that we're going to need to use. So there's a couple ways that you can do this. You can just edit your bashrc file, or like OSX uses ZSHRC. So let me just quickly get this going so we can have it working while we're going. But point being is, while this is upgrading to the latest version, we can go ahead and get started on what we're going to need to use here. And I'm just going to call this startup.sh. And we can just make this a bash RC file. And what that's going to allow us to do is just export the information that we're going to need. Okay. Um, I can tell you that the information is really just going to be this set of info. I don't know if I actually have this ca.pem or this module auth token. I created this example in another version. I also think we need I need that bash RC file. Okay. All right. So I think this example should be good to go. It's going to export these values. I'm pretty sure that this is not going to work exactly as is. We're going to have to figure out what this ca.pem is going to be and a couple other things. So let's get that sorted out. And while we're waiting here, again, don't use this example exactly as is. You're going to have to modify where your certs are and where this module auth token is, as well as, frankly, what is in the module auth token. But this is restarted, so we can go back to our functions view and get into it. So let's test it out, run this. All right, this is a lot more useful. Okay, Rubix is what I was trying to refer to as that example. There you go. That is their like Dockerization or container orchestration solution that they have engineered. Um, Anyways, so you can see a lot of the different environment variables that are actually being used here. You can even see that there is a default CA path, which is one of the attributes that we're clearly missing, right? That's one of the files that was bonking out on us from above, right? The reason it's failing is it cannot find that file. And then another one that I know will also fail is this module auth token. I'm going to kind of give you the shortcut, and the shortcut is you're going to have to generate a new token. You can just go to your account, generate one that way, save it to the file, and point it at the path. I'm probably not going to do that on camera, but we'll be right back when I'm done with it. But point being is, you have this example here, and I'll check this in as well, so you have it to reference if you don't want to deploy the sample app yourself. But it will give you all the information you need using this plus the documentation that they've provided, the environment variables. Just make sure you're changing to the Node.js one. I think that should give you everything that you need to know. I think there's one other gotcha in here. Let me just make sure I find it. Right here it says the post schema URI. It says use it to construct a URI when constructing a custom client. Example, blah, blah, blah. Fully qualified URL, right? This is not fully qualified. I think it's just a typo. So again, with this, you have the power yourself to figure it out yourself, which is more valuable than just updated documentation. But maybe I'll send them an email about that later. All right. We'll be right back when I'm done creating my ca.pem file and my module auth token file. All right. Well, I got a bit sidetracked, but with a good cause. So, I was in the process of trying to hunt down a good cert to use for this, and I remembered I had a so if you don't know, VS Code is available for certain features. You have to enable it in your control panel, but as long as you do that, you can get to things that the environment will be running, because with a VS Code IDE, you also get the terminal. With the terminal, you can navigate to wherever you need to go, right? So I just opened up an example project that I have. This is for something completely unrelated, but you can see I found one of the CA certs, right? So I think I already went ahead and saved this file, but let me just pop back to cursor. All right, so we can go right, and you can see module auth token is there. That's one of the files, and the other is ca.pem. I can actually probably open this one for you guys. Yeah. All right. So I just copied in the cert like so, and the module auth token. I probably won't show on screen, but pretty easy to find and copy over if you need to. Another cool feature. Maybe we'll go into the OSDK and the developer console in another video, but the simplified version is this allows you to run um, React projects. You can either have them deployed directly within Foundry, or you can just like go to Vercel or equivalent. Make sure you enable all the right egress policies and whatnot, but you can also run it from there. All right, back on track. So we've configured the required environment variables. Let me get us back to cursor. So I now have the required files for this, and so let's actually just close out of that. Let's go here. So let's just test it out by doing a node index. Still doesn't like it. Well, it makes sense. We haven't actually run this startup.sh. So I can tell you right now that's not going to work because it's red. But actually, for those of you who don't have that autocomplete built in, permission denied. So easy fix. So that just adds the executable permission. And then run that. And now if we echo module, I'm probably not going to actually echo that. Let's do default. Does it want to do that? Try that. So, why? I didn't actually run it. This thing's off here. Has the right permissions. Okay. Go. Now that. Good. I get it. So, source startup.sh. Okay. All right. That's a good point. So that's part of it, but you still need to do the source startup.sh. Now, there you go. So now it's working. You can also just solve this by putting this in your ZSHRC file. You can just ask ChatGPT how to do that. But hopefully this will actually run. This is actually a good sign. It's pretty anticlimactic. So this means that it's actually running. Again, if you just like look at the structure of this code, it's not what you would expect traditionally. There's no like function invocation that's happening within this. Trust me, this is a good sign. This means that it's actually running. We know that that is working as expected. And that means that we can be confident that we have configured our local environment correctly. And again, if you kill one of these terminals and have to restart, just remember that you need to rerun your startup.sh. And then what I clearly forgot to do was the sourcing part of it. Okay. And again, the basic way to always check that you have what you need to have is just echo one of the variables that you didn't have before. Make sure that it's actually returning something. If it's not working. Okay. Okay. I think that wraps up that part of it. I will probably create the shell of another compute module project, and I will see you on the next one. All right. I think we have everything we need to now. So I've created a new project, a new compute module project. there's a couple things I wanted to quickly talk through here before we get too far, just so you understand some of the differences that we now have. So one, I've copied over the startup.sh file from before. We're going to quickly talk through the package.json for this. So actually, let me quickly add one thing here as well. So if you need to reach out to me, that's a good email. But a couple things. So npx playwright install, that is actually one of the components that requires us to actually use compute modules. Otherwise, we could probably run this as just a native TypeScript function. The next part that I want to quickly talk through is this index.ts. So there's going to be a couple things here that are new. All right. So one, the Sinclair type box. So what does this actually give us? What this gives us is auto registration, right? If you remember from the prior example, we had to actually create each individual function. We had to manually define it. With this, fingers crossed, we shouldn't have to. All right. There's a couple steps to it. I've separated it out into two functions. So we have one function that just takes in this same npm string, and it is actually going to return to us the full JSON structure. Okay. The other example is going to just return the text, right? So that sample that I showed you that we ended up copying into our Shopify product page, that's what this is going to give us. From here, you can just see what we're doing to actually register it. Again, this is going back to the dependency up there. You can kind of just read it with the simple example, right? So your input is an npm string. In this case, it's actually expecting an object. So keep that in mind when we actually invoke it, but your output's just going to be a string. Again, I included one simple example. This is very useful for just testing that your compute module is up and running. You can ultimately delete this. And then we have our two functions that we're going to register. Okay. I'm going to push all of this code. It's okay if you guys have it, use it, whatever. But that was the first part. The second part is how to actually use this. So you're just going to have to do an npm install. I think this post install should take care of it for you. I don't think that's going to run with the way that we have our Docker file set up with the npm CI. That doesn't actually write it. So in this case, I've explicitly defined it as another run command. This, I just had to Google. This is how you did it. I did not actually know that until now. This is just where we're going to store the actual browsers. We're going to copy all of that. We're going to have to run npm run build. So let's go back to our package, right? So our build is just going to do the TSC. What that's going to do is it's going to build everything, and then you're going to have the the JavaScript version of it that actually is what gets run. I think that's pretty much it. I did add a test option, so this should make it easy for you. So if you do your npm run build, let's first do that. And then you can just do npm run test. So I just hard-coded an example in here. So that was the same 4.5-inch breaking grinder. And this is invoking the version that returns the JSON object, which is why we do this whole console log JSON stringify. Okay. I hope that's it. Let's try it. All right, so let's just go to the configuration. We know what we're doing now. So make this a little bigger. All right, so yep, this all looks fine. Let's go to our functions page, change this back to Python or Node.js. Very good. We have to create another repository. All right, that is good. Okay, well, let's actually rename this to Milwaukee Scraper, generate token, and hope that's it. All right, let's let this do its thing. It should probably take a bit because we have to pull down a whole lot more in way of packages. But while that's running, we can just look through the rest of the commands. So if you're skipping to this part of the video, you can pretty much just follow along with your traditional deploy. So the next part is going to be running this, which is just going to push our compiled image up to the artifactory or the repository where our artifacts are going to go. Okay, so we'll give this a second. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I should mention. I didn't really do anything special with the TS config, kind of just took one of the defaults. I did include a small README. So the step here with installing your dependencies, obviously you're going to want to make sure that you run your startup script. So actually, let me make that a step above this. I remembered this one startup. There we go. Okay, let's finish building. Let's see if there's anything that. Oh, that looks fine. All right, so copy that, run this. Again, this is going to take a little bit longer because we have a good number more dependencies. But just skimming through here, I think this should be everything that we need. This is not really necessary, but if you're actually trying to do a lot of debugging, I've set it so the debugger is, well, it's going to look for a debug or the debug equal to 1. And so if you set it accordingly, it should actually give you some additional logs. Again, not really required if you're running in any other environment. So obviously that's not in the Docker file. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So yeah, let's give it a second. We'll be back when it's done. All right, so it should pop up any minute. Okay, there we go. 0.01, I'm going to update the configuration. It's probably going to take some time, so I'm going to have to fast forward a little bit. But I'm going to leave it here and go get a drink. I've pulled a couple of examples that we're going to go register here in a second after we hopefully get this running. But I'm going to go refill my water. So exciting stuff, guys. 3 printer finished. I have a full DeWalt battery holder. Let me see if I have a. There you go. And that's a cool tool as well, that little blower. Super handy. All right, let's see. Has this actually started? No. So that's the other thing with these that I'm going to take a little bit to start, but all right, I'll keep going. I'm going to go do some other stuff while this is getting ready. Ta-da! All right. So, moment of truth, right? Like I told you, auto registration. Awesome. Um, so let's test it out. So let's use. So I'll use a. This is a slightly different model. This one does not have the variable speed. Success equals false. Okay. So the obvious reason that comes to mind is we probably have not given it the right egress configuration. So let me go to configure, add sources. So we're gonna, I probably already defined this. Okay, so let's open this up. So text. Okay, so here's log. So okay, I might buy that. No. All right. Well, looks like it's starting to do some stuff, so we'll stop being distracted, or at least too distracted. That's decent. All right, well, let's get into it. I'm gonna go back to the same one that we had. So why is it still not happy? MilwaukeeTool.com products servers network idle. Oh my god. You see this? Dumb. Well, this is why you double check everything. All right. So now I hope this should be everything we need. Okay, wonderful. Mm-hmm. I really wonder if you can actually just update the parameters on the fly and it'll work. Let's try it. No. So, looks like we're gonna have to stop and restart again. Okay. All right, well, that means we can continue browsing. Oh, that's quite solid. $59. Yeah, I'll say that's about worth it. Yep. All right. Well, looks like this is back up and running. So let's give it another try. There you have it. All right. So we have some exciting news. This means that we are probably, well, before we go too far, let me just check the formatted one is actually working as expected too. And by the way, you can configure it so you can have multiple workers as well. So if you want this to actually behave under like normal load, you can have um, independent processing. And so that'll get extremely helpful. All right. So I think you can see this all, but this looks to me like it's working. Um, I think the next step is we're going to want to take this, and I think you can see all these slash ends and whatnot. But right now, let's just take an example and see if we can run a very quick script. So there you have it. All right, so this is everything formatted the way we want it. Obviously, we're going to want to have that working from like a user interface that we can work on and click into. Something ideally, I want this to be something I can use from my phone as well. So we'll get into some of that with Workshop in a bit, but I don't want to have an anticlimactic end to this. So I have a couple of these batteries that I need to list. So let's do that. So model number is 4811-2450. Let's run that. Very good. And if you're wondering what I'm doing here, it's just one of the artifacts or holdovers from how it's being rendered. So I'll just make this a new variable. I wonder if CLS works now. Okay. Okay, so we have a high output 5.0 battery pack. So let's start from where we were in the beginning of this. We're going to add a new product. I'm just going to copy this directly. And it's probably okay that we have those images at the bottom. I'll do a little bit of tweaking with this as well later. Clearly, there's some weird behavior with how it's copying in. Let me see if I can get rid of some of that. Yeah, there we go. That's better. So let's put this in here. So Milwaukee. Oh, wonderful. Auto suggested the right thing. I'm just going to open up one of these images. I think maybe one of our next tutorials will be on media sets. So there's an ability for you to use external transforms to actually get URLs, take URLs like this and convert them into actual media sets. So that might be one. Maybe we'll do another one on pulling information from Home Depot. We'll see. I'll have to look through some of the code that I already have and see what we want to do with that. So I will just do this in my downloads. Okay. I'm gonna say I'm just gonna list 5 of these for right now. Let me figure out what the UPC is next. That might be another tutorial, is how to invoke actual REST APIs and have those integrated, and how to combine invoking a compute module with a REST API call. We'll see. I'm just filling out some of this, so let's see what Home Depot is actually selling this for. So they have it listed for $99. We can beat that. All right, we're gonna go with that for right now. I might drop it later, but product type, battery, vendor, Milwaukee, 712. Another idea, we can set up auto syncs. So Shopify has a data source connector. So that actually might be an even better idea. So I have some actual improvements I need to make. But you can see it. Our listing is live. Welcome to go check it out. But I actually think that's probably a great option. So if you go to new source here, you can see Shopify is an option. And if you set up all your API keys correctly, you can make it work. And it takes a little bit of fiddling because you have to understand how Shopify behind the scenes is storing its data, and then you have to make that all join together in the right way. But once you do that, maybe we can do some cool stuff where we're automatically ingesting information from here and then pushing it back to Shopify, so we're not even having to do that manual step over there. We'll see. Either way, thank you all for watching. Hope you found this useful, informative, whatever. Look forward to seeing you on the next one. See ya.